They said I never helped them. They looked someone in the eye and said those exact words. She didn't do anything for me. And the person they said it to, it was my sister. She called me after the birthday dinner, her voice low, almost hesitant, like she wasn't sure if she should repeat it, but she did. And I just stood there in the kitchen, holding a plate I'd just finished drying, like it might fall from my hands if I loosened my grip. I didn't say anything. I just listened, because that's what I've always done, quietly, patiently. Letting people rewrite the story while I stand off stage holding the receipts. But that one, that sentence, it cracked something in me. Because I remember the night they got their acceptance letter. I remembered the way their hands shook, how they texted me before anyone else, and I remember what I did next. I transferred money I didn't really have, money that was supposed to help me fix the leak in the ceiling or renew my car insurance, but I wired it over anyway. I told myself, it's just the first semester. After that, things will settle. I said it like a prayer, and they said, thank you. Back then, that word meant something, or at least I thought it did. Now, it's like I hallucinated the whole thing, like none of it ever happened. Not the stress, not the spreadsheets, not the skipped meals or unpaid bills. Just a silent rewrite. She never helped me, and somehow that version is easier to share, easier to live with, for them, but not for me, because I still remember. The weight of that transfer confirmation, and what it cost to press send. I didn't grow up with extra, not money, not time, not space to fall apart. My mother taught us to make things stretch leftovers into full meals, paychecks into patchwork months. So when I started working, I promised myself I'd build something steadier. I got 2 jobs, then 3. Nothing glamorous, just reliable. I said no to vacations, no to weekend drinks, no to things that didn't last. And when I finally had a little saved, I didn't spend it on myself. I kept it in a separate account one. I labeled emergencies, though deep down I knew it wasn't really for me. It was for whoever needed it first, and of course it was them. The college acceptance was a surprise to everyone, especially them, but their voice cracked on the phone when they said, I got in. They didn't even have to ask. I said, we'll figure it out. I told them not to worry about the money, that I'd cover the start until the scholarships kicked in. And I did quietly, while still paying my own rent, while still skipping my own dentist appointments. I sold old electronics. I canceled my internet plan and used the free Wi-Fi at work. I budgeted like a surgeon. I remember sitting on the floor, with envelopes spread around me like puzzle pieces, rent, electric, food, tuition. I made it fit. I always do. Because when I love someone, I go silent about the cost. That's the part they don't see. Or maybe they choose not to. Maybe I never helped is just easier than saying, she gave everything, and I didn't. Want to feel guilty, but I feel it for both of us. Every single day, what hurts the most isn't the money. It's not the empty account or the skipped holidays or the years I spent playing catch-up with myself. What hurts the most is that I never asked for anything in return, just honesty. Just the decency of not being erased from the version they tell others. But even that, it seems, was too much. Because now they've rebuilt the narrative. In their version, I'm the relative who never showed up. The one who wasn't there when it mattered. And people believe it. They nod. They sympathize. Meanwhile, I sit in the back of family gatherings, watching them laugh with people I carried on my back. And no one looks at me. No one asks, wait, didn't you help them get started? Because I didn't keep proof. I didn't save screenshots of the transfer. I didn't write about the nights I cried quietly into the pillow, afraid I'd fall short on rent. I just lived it. And now it feels like that version of me is locked in a room no one visits anymore. She sacrificed too quietly. She gave too privately. And in a world where only visible wounds get treated, she became invisible. Still, I smile when they walk into the room. Still, I pass the potatoes across the table. Still, I text them on their birthday, because I don't know how to be any other way. But inside, something has shifted. A quiet wall, newly built, not out of spite but out of necessity. Because if they can pretend I never helped, I can learn to stop hoping they'll thank me. And that's where the real distance begins. Not in miles, but in memory. At first, I tried to rationalize it. Maybe they were caught off guard. Maybe someone asked them about their past and they didn't know how to explain the parts I played. Maybe they didn't want to look like they needed help. I told myself, people edit their stories all the time. I do it too, don't I? I round up the good and round down the hurt. I swallow the things that don't fit. But this wasn't a blur or a misstep. This was a choice. A sentence, clear and final, she didn't help me. And the more I sat with it, the more I realized it wasn't just a slip of memory. It was a decision to step into a version of success that didn't include me. Because admitting I helped would mean admitting they didn't do it alone. And maybe that's the story they need to tell, that they built it all from the ground up. that no one saved them, that their victory was earned in isolation. But I remember the ground. I remember the cracks. And I remember how many times I laid myself across them to keep everything from falling apart. So I replayed the call in my head over and over. My sister saying softly, "I thought you should know. I didn't want you to hear it from someone else." And that's what stung. Not just their denial, but how unsurprised she sounded. Like she had already accepted that I would always be the one behind the curtain, clapping quietly, carrying receipts no one would ever ask to see. And maybe that's the problem. I taught people how to forget me. By making it easy to pretend I wasn't there. I didn't confront them. I didn't call, didn't message, didn't ask, "Why would you say that?" Because deep down, I already knew the answer. They said it because they could. Because I've never been the kind of person who pushes back. I don't make scenes. I don't demand apologies. I survive by staying composed, by pretending that being overlooked doesn't leave bruises. I told myself for years that I was being mature, that not needing recognition was a strength, that I could hold everyone together and expect nothing in return. But I was wrong. There's nothing mature about disappearing for other people's comfort. There's nothing noble about being the one who always understands. All it does is teach the world that your silence is permission, and I had given that permission far too many times. I kept thinking back to the first week of their classes, how they called every night, stressed and overwhelmed, how I stayed on the line through their breakdowns, how I mailed them a care package, with snacks and sticky notes that said, "You've got this." I even remember writing, "Don't forget who's cheering for you." I should have added, "Don't forget who paid for the chance," but I didn't because I didn't think I had to. I believed we shared something deeper than transactions, that real love didn't need ledgers. But now, I see the truth. Even the purest support becomes invisible when you refuse to name it. And I had let them write the story without ever asking for a page, so of course they left me out. They didn't see me there, because I'd spent so long trying not to be a burden, that I became a ghost instead. I began to realize that they didn't forget me. I packaged my help in silence. I wrapped my sacrifices in soft smiles and waved away any discomfort with phrases like, "It's no big deal, and I'm just happy to help." And they took me at my word. They accepted the effort, but not the wait. They thanked me quickly, casually, and then moved on. And I let them. I thought that's what love was, doing the hard things without needing to be seen. But now, standing in the ruins of that belief, I'm starting to understand something different. If you never let anyone see how much it costs, they'll assume it was free, and they'll treat it like it never happened. I kept playing the strong one, the dependable one, the one who doesn't mind, but I minded. I minded deeply. And when I heard what they'd said when I let those 5 words sink in, she never helped me. It wasn't just a lie. It was an undoing. A quiet unraveling of every late night, every tight budget, every call I answered while silencing my own needs. I looked in the mirror that night and saw someone I hadn't acknowledged in years. Not a victim, not a martyr, just a woman who thought her love would speak for itself. But love without voice becomes shadow, and I was tired of fading, so I didn't send an angry text. I didn't try to correct the narrative, but I made myself a promise that from this moment on, if I give, it will be seen. And if it isn't, I won't give there again, because being quiet shouldn't mean being erased. I started small. I stopped sending money when they hinted about needing a little help with books. I didn't ignore the message, I just responded differently. "I hope it works out," I said. That was it. No offer, no follow-up. And it felt strange at first, like holding back a part of myself that had always rushed in. But then something surprising happened. Nothing. The world didn't fall apart. They didn't beg. They didn't ask why. They simply moved on. And that was the moment I saw the truth. I was never their only option, just the easiest one. The one who never made them feel uncomfortable. The one who always said yes before they finished asking. But that version of me was tired. Not angry, just exhausted. So I started paying my own overdue bills first. I bought new shoes instead of sending another transfer. I made a dentist appointment I'd been putting off for 2 years. And every time I chose myself, it stung a little less, because I wasn't used to it. I had always lived at the edge of my own attention, constantly prioritizing everyone else's emergencies. But now, I was building boundaries not as punishment, but as protection. I didn't announce them. I didn't post quotes or make dramatic declarations. I just moved differently. Quietly, and in that quiet, I found something I hadn't felt in years. Relief. Not the kind that comes when someone thanks you, but the kind that shows up when you finally thank yourself. Because I used to believe being generous meant saying yes. Now, I know real generosity starts with not saying no to yourself. It took time. But I started reclaiming the small pieces of my life, the ones I used to trade for someone else's convenience. I cooked meals that were just for me, not rushed or scraped together out of guilt. I lit candles at night and let the apartment stay quiet, not because I was lonely, but because I was finally alone without obligation. I walked to the library. Again, picked up books I'd been meaning to read and sat with them like old friends I'd abandoned. Slowly, I realized how much of myself I had paused. How many dreams I'd folded and tucked away because someone else's needs sounded louder. I had called it love, but it was erasure. Bit by bit, I had disappeared under the weight of being the helpful one. And what broke me wasn't that they didn't say thank you. It was that they never thought they needed to. As if my sacrifices were background noise, expected forgettable. But not anymore. Now, when my phone buzzes with another "Hey, do you think you could?" I pause. I ask myself first, do I want to? Not can I? Not will they be upset if I don't? But simply, do I want to? And that question has changed everything. It's not about becoming cold or distant. It's about becoming deliberate. Because giving should be a choice, not a pattern. And worthiness isn't earned through depletion. It exists before the giving starts. I used to think I had to prove I was good by how much I endured. Now I know I'm good even when I don't pick up the pieces. Especially then, the last time we saw each other, I didn't bring it up. I didn't mention what they said or ask why they erased me from their story. Instead, I watched how comfortably they sat across from me, smiling, laughing, sipping their drink like nothing had changed. Maybe to them nothing had, but I had. I listened differently now. I noticed the little ways they still expected me to carry things emotionally, logistically. "You always know how to fix it," they said at one point, half laughing like a compliment, but it wasn't. It was a cue. And for the first time, I didn't take it. I let the silence sit there. I didn't offer a solution, didn't soften the air. I just nodded and changed the subject, because I wasn't here to perform anymore. I was here to witness who I had become and whether they could see her too. Spoiler, they couldn't, and I didn't need them to. I paid the bill for my drink and left without saying, "Let me cover yours." They looked surprised, but not offended, just uncertain, like they could sense something was different but couldn't name it. And maybe that's all I ever needed. Not revenge, not a confession, just for them to feel the absence of my unspoken yes, because I'm still kind, still generous, still the person who will help when it's right, but I'm not invisible anymore, not in their stories, not in mine. And if that means fewer people lean on me, so be it, because now I'm leaning into myself, and that version of me doesn't wait to be seen. She sees herself first. I bought myself a suitcase, a new one. Not fancy, just sturdy, with wheels that glide smoothly and a zipper that doesn't catch. It may sound silly, but it was the first time I'd spent real money on something meant only for me to carry my life, my time, my plans. I hadn't traveled in years. I'd always postponed, always redirected that money towards someone else's deadline. Maybe next year, I'd say, and then next year would belong to someone else again. But this time, I booked a weekend trip by the coast. A quiet town, no itinerary. Just space to breathe where no one knew my name or my history. And as I packed that suitcase folding soft sweaters, choosing books, tucking in tea bags like rituals, I realized something. This wasn't a reward, it was a return. Not to who I was before them, but to who I had become, despite it all. I wasn't angry anymore, not even hurt, really. What lingered now was clarity. Not everyone will admit what you did for them. Some won't even remember, and others will pretend you were never there at all. But you were, and you know it. And sometimes that has to be enough. The story they tell at parties isn't the full story, and your silence isn't proof that they're right. It's proof that you've moved on. So I zipped the suitcase shut and felt something settle in my chest. Not closure, not justice, just peace. Because the version of me who stayed quiet for so long was finally on her way somewhere new. And this time, she wasn't leaving parts of herself behind just to make someone else feel lighter. The first night on the trip, I sat on a bench by the water. The air was crisp, the sky washed in deep blue, and the waves moved without urgency. They had nothing to prove. I didn't check my phone. I didn't wait for anyone to call. And for once, I wasn't hoping someone would suddenly remember me. There was nothing to wait for. Just me, my breath, the sound of the tide, and the strange comfort of finally not needing to explain why I was tired. I used to think healing would look louder, like a triumphant post or someone apologizing after all this time. But this, quiet was deeper than any apology. Because in it, I realized I'd spent years investing in people who only loved what I could provide, never who I actually was. And I had accepted it, even nurtured it, thinking if I just gave enough, eventually, someone would stay. But I know now that people who stay don't need to be convinced. They don't erase you to feel taller. They don't rewrite your part in their story just because the ending changed. They remember. And if they don't, asterisk, they were never really yours to carry. That night, I whispered to myself a sentence I didn't even know I needed. I'm still here, not forgotten, not erased, just still here. And somehow, that was more grounding than any thank you I never received. Because presence isn't what others give you. It's what you finally allow yourself to feel. And in that moment, by the ocean, I didn't need to be seen to know I existed. I just had to stop disappearing for people who never asked where I went. When I came back home, the apartment felt different. Nothing had changed. The same couch, same scuffed table, same quiet fridge hum, but I had. I moved through the space slower, not cautiously, but deliberately. I no longer rushed to answer texts. I no longer made space for people who didn't make space for me, and I stopped explaining myself. That was the biggest shift. Before, I would have bent my voice into soft shapes just to be understood. Now, I was learning to say things simply and let them land where they may. I can't do that right now. I have other priorities. I need to rest, and if that made someone uncomfortable, I let it. Because for years, I had been uncomfortable in silence, watching my contributions disappear while others shined, but not anymore. I didn't need revenge. I didn't want pity. I just wanted the space to exist without being useful, and that's what I built quietly, steadily. A life where I could breathe without apology, where love didn't mean self-erasure, where memory wasn't a weapon. They can keep telling their version, the one where I never helped, the one where I was absent, the one where they rose entirely on their own. Let them. Because I don't need to be part of their speech to know I was part of their survival. I don't need to be quoted to remember what I carried, and I don't need to be thanked to forgive myself for all the times I thought love meant disappearing. I'm done shrinking, and in this new story mine, I don't need a spotlight, just a mirror, and the quiet knowing that I am finally, undeniably, here. Last week, I printed out the confirmation email from that first tuition payment, the one I sent years ago, in the middle of the night with my hands shaking and my heart full. I placed it in a simple frame. No gold trim, no flair, just black. Ink on white paper, dated and real. I set it on my bookshelf between two novels I've read a dozen times. Not as a trophy, not as a weapon, but as a reminder. That moment existed. I was there. I gave what I didn't have to someone who wouldn't. Remember? And still, I remember. Because memory isn't validation from others. It's what we carry forward when no one else is looking. And I'm done pretending that what I did wasn't sacred just because it went unseen. People might twist timelines. They might skip chapters, but I lived them. And I don't need their permission to honor what I survived. So now, when I walk past that little frame, I don't feel bitterness. I feel grounded. I feel proud, not of what I gave, but of the fact that I learned when to stop giving, that I didn't wait forever, that I found my way back to myself before the forgetting swallowed me whole, that I built a life outside the shadow of their story. And no matter how loudly they rewrite it, this version mine stays intact, because the truth doesn't fade. Just because someone refuses to speak it, it lives in the choices I make now, in the people I keep close, and in the quiet strength of knowing that while they erased me, I reclaimed myself, and I will never hand that over again. I've stopped trying to correct the narrative. There's no point. People believe what fits their comfort, not always what's true. And honestly, I'm no longer here to prove anything. I've walked through fire for people who won't even light a match for me, and I did it with open hands, not expecting medals, just memory. But when memory fades selectively, we're left with choices. Chase the spotlight we were never meant to stand in, or light our own room quietly, where no one can dim it again. I chose the second. Now I say yes only when it feels full. Now I give without resentment, because I only give from overflow. Now I rest guilt-free. I don't answer every call. I don't attend every event. And when someone asks for help, I ask myself, will this cost me pieces I'm still gluing back together? If the answer is yes, I walk away, not coldly, just clearly, because love without boundaries becomes a form of self-neglect. And I've practiced that language long enough. They may never apologize. They may never say, she saved me when no one else did. And that's okay. I don't need to be quoted in their biography, because the chapter that nearly broke me is now the one that made me, and I've written it in ink for me. I walk different now, not heavier, not harder, just aligned with the truth, with the quiet, with a kind of peace that doesn't need to be shared, to be real, because real peace never asks you to explain yourself. It just lets you breathe. And finally, I can dot yesterday. I lit a candle at sunset, the same kind I used to keep in a drawer, saving for better moments that never quite arrived. I let it burn slow. The scent filled the room, amber, a little cedar, something soft and warm. I sat down with a notebook and wrote one sentence. I was there, even if they pretend I wasn't. I underlined it twice. That was all. I didn't need to write a letter or make a list of what I did for them. I just needed to mark it for me. To name the truth in a world so quick to forget women like me, the ones who give without headlines, who sacrifice without a soundtrack, who don't pose next to the lives they helped build, but are still the reason those lives stood at all. I folded the page and tucked it behind a photo on my shelf. One of just me, smiling softly. Not waiting, not hoping to be seen, just existing. And maybe that's the new version of success. To stand in your own light without needing an audience to believe it's real, because I won't spend the rest of my life convincing people of my worth. I lived it, I know it, and no one can take that away. Tell me, have you ever watched someone erase your name from the story, even when your fingerprints were still on every page? If this found a place inside you, comment below. I was there. I still am.